So, if your Twitter timeline is anything like mine, it looks something a little bit like this right now. Mine's kind of looked like this for the past week. The reason it looks like this is probably because all these people are seeing headlines that look like this. Georgia's heartbeat abortion bill could imprison women for life. Women who terminate their pregnancies would receive life in prison. Women could get up to 30 years in prison for having a miscarriage under Georgia's harsh new abortion law. Yeah, all that sounds pretty rough, so I'm gonna break some things down. I'm gonna break down these two bills and then I'll dive slightly into two more. But before I even do that, there are some other things I want to say. First being, you are allowed to think whatever you want about this. It is a free country. I'm not here to tell you what to think about it. I'm just here to tell you what these laws are doing and what they mean. Another thing I want to say is I don't care what you think about this. I do not care in the sense of your opinion on any of these bills or abortion will not affect how I think about you as a person. Another thing I want to say is interpreting bills is hard. Like looking over these bills, I am no congresswoman. This is not my strong suit. So, I read the bills, but I also relied on other sources to help me interpret them. And I will list these sources at the end if you guys want to go listen to those as well. But just saying, it's really hard. There's big words and I'm not a genius. So, moving on to the bills, I want to note that Georgia and Ohio's bill are very different. They're not flat out across the board the same, they have major differences. So, starting out with Georgia, number one, this bill does not go into effect until January of 2020. So, you can do whatever until then. Every woman who is scheduled to have an abortion right now, they can still get one. Number two, abortions are illegal after the baby's heartbeat is detected. So this can be earlier than 6 weeks. If a baby has a heartbeat and it's detected before the 6 week deadline, then you cannot abort it. It is a 6 week absolute maximum cutoff. So after 6 weeks, they won't even look at you. It's illegal after 6 weeks, but it could be illegal before 6 weeks. Number three, this bill grants babies with a heartbeat full legal personhood. Now, this is an important distinction because not every bill has this. So, they have this whole section dedicated to making this clear. The babies now have natural rights. And I also want to point out there is a difference between being a human and having personhood. Human is a scientific term. When you're in the womb, you're a human. Like, humans don't make anything other than humans. We are humans. But personhood is a philosophical, moral term, and that is when you are granted natural rights. And they cite the Constitution in this section. So, babies in the womb now have the same rights as humans outside the womb. This is important. We will kind of discuss why later when I get into the legal repercussions of this. I do want to explain that there are some exemptions for this law. These are anomalies, but the first exemption is that an abortion is still permitted if it is determined the mother's life is at risk. The second exemption is if because some abnormality the child is not able to sustain the life after its birth, the abortion is still permitted. I believe it says something about chromosomal anomaly, which is incompatible with sustaining life after birth. Yes, it does say that. So this can kind of get into the gray area. I'm not sure if this means that an abortion is still allowed, if there's some mental disabilities, or just if the child cannot live their life after they're born. The third exemption is that in the case of rape or incest, the abortion is still permitted, so long as you have a police report filed. So there's no trial necessary. You don't have to prove that you were raped. You just have to file the police report, and if you find out that you are pregnant, you can still abort the baby up to 20 weeks. And the last exemption, which is one I want to stress because I guess this is where everyone's confused, but if you have a miscarriage, you are not going to be put on trial. The bill specifically says, I think it says in there twice, that a miscarriage or ectopic pregnancy is not an abortion. So I don't know where some of these headlines were going with that, but Just want you to know, if you have a miscarriage, you're not going to be put in jail. Now, this is where things get tough and tricky. So, because Georgia gave the baby in the womb full legal person with natural rights, if someone tries to kill it, you would be held criminally responsible. Just like if you were to try and kill anyone outside the womb, you would be held responsible. This is where the confusion is stemming when people say that they're going to put the woman in jail if you get an abortion. Which they would be right if it were not for this code, section 1612-141, that Georgia already has in place. I could go on and on about this code, but basically the main thing is there's already a code that applies to unlawful abortions in Georgia, and this code was not repealed when this heartbeat bill got passed. And basically in the code it says that the third party that does the abortion, so in this case, in most cases, it would be like the doctor that does the abortion, they would be the one that would be criminalized, not the mother. So this code mentions that the doctor who does the abortion, they can receive no less than 1 year of jail time and no more than 10. And in addition to that, they will lose their medical license. Now, moving on to Ohio, which is different than Georgia, it has the same 6-week heartbeat rule. I am confused on whether or not it's currently taking effect. I also read somewhere that it won't be put into effect until July, so I'm not sure there. But one thing I do know is this bill does not touch on legal personhood whatsoever. There is no mention of any natural rights. There's nothing about that. Nothing about legal personhood. So because this bill does not touch on legal personhood, the criminalization is solely on the providers. Whereas the Georgia bill, it was a little confusing. I hope I cleared that up. But there's no women are getting in trouble for nothing. The providers will receive a 4th-degree felony. There's not really any mention of jail time in this one, but it is made clear that the doctor will again lose their license. I believe the exemptions for this law is, once again, if the mother's life is at risk, then she can still have an abortion. And also, I don't even think it says anything about miscarriage. I think it's just kind of like a known, like, an abortion is not a miscarriage. I don't know why Georgia had to specifically say that for people to think that it is or isn't an abortion, but miscarriages, again, are not going to be an issue in this bill. This bill does not touch on rape or incest or the child abnormalities. Ohio is criminalizing birth control? I'm so sorry. No.
No.
Nothing in Ohio is passed about birth control, especially criminalizing it or making it illegal. Now, I don't want to say this girl who tweeted this, it just made it up out of thin air. There is a bill that talks about birth control currently being revised and worked on. It's Ohio House Bill 182, and all it does is talk about how health insurance corporations cannot provide coverage for certain types of birth control. These certain types of birth control are the ones that prevent implantation. There are birth controls that prevent fertilization, and there's birth controls that prevent implantation. And I guess a lot of people don't know what that difference is. So let me break it down. This is what sex education has failed to teach us. There's a sperm, and there's an egg. When sperm and egg meet, it is fertilization. That is fertilization. So a lot of birth controls prevent that. A lot of birth controls prevent the sperm and egg from ever meeting. After fertilization, the sperm and egg are traveling down the woman's body and it attaches to the uterus wall. That is called implantation. So the reason this bill is kind of in the works, I guess, is because a lot of pro-life people believe that life starts at fertilization. And if there is a birth control out there that stops the fertilized egg from attaching to the uterus wall, if it stops it from implanting, that would be considered an abortion to them. Now, this bill does not make those types of birth control illegal. It does not make it to where you cannot get them. It does not criminalize people who have those birth controls. All it does is it says your health insurance company cannot give that to you for free. They're not going to provide it for you. For what it's worth, it is not looking like this bill is going to pass. Someone I followed on Twitter says it doesn't have near as much support as it would need. Take from that what you will, random guy on Twitter. I'm pretty sure they tried to pass a similar bill a couple years ago and it got struck down. And so a lot of this bill just seems to have opinion. Here's my opinion. This bill has a lot of issues even besides the birth control aspect. So I think that, every time I look at it, there's new revisions and all this stuff. And so this is way out of left field. I don't know why this got brought into play right now, really. This video is getting kind of long, so I'm just going to mention the Alabama bill really quickly. I have not read the full text, but from what I know is it is not a heartbeat bill, it is just an outright ban. They do have exceptions for the mother's life. It does touch on the miscarriages, whatever miscarriages don't count. It does not provide an out for rape or incest victims. However, it provides an out for mental health issues. So that's a even broader exemption. So if you go and you say I have PTSD from my rape, or if this pregnancy is going to affect my mental health, you can get an exemption from the abortion. And the women are not criminalized. That is said within like the first 3 sentences of this bill. So when you see tweets that go viral that say that a woman is going to get more punishment for having abortion than a rapist, or women are going to be sentenced to 99 years in prison, like, do not believe this stuff. This is my entire point of this video, is that if you see something and if you are mad enough to retweet about it onto my timeline, then I really hope that you guys do a little bit more digging. It's okay to be mad about these bills. I just explained them, and even after explaining them, I still don't care if you are mad about them. What I do care a little bit about is if you are mad about lies. I do not want you guys to be mad about lies. That is why I made this video, is because the people who are liking and retweeting this stuff are my Finsta, Instagram friends and followers. And if there's something I want my friends and followers to know, it's that you should always do some fact checking. You should really do some fact checking, and that these tweets and headlines are specifically written to make you mad. Here is my closing statement. If something I said in this video didn't make sense, DM me and we can talk about whatever you want. If you have read these bills and you find a mistake in what I interpreted in my findings, you DM me, we can talk about it, and I will correct myself if I got something wrong. I am not a genius. Also, always question your authority and practice your First Amendment while you still have it. Bye.